Hello and welcome inside the Chris Evans Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Evans, joined today by the Superintendent of Guthrie Public Schools, Dr. Mike Simpson. Summer is over, school is in session. It's still hot outside.
It started, school year started with a bang. I mean, it's well over 100 degrees, it seems like, until like yesterday. And it's so hot, I don't even want to mow the grass or play golf.
And that's saying something for you because you like to do both very well. Well, it is that time of year. School bond election is coming up on August 27th. Of course, early voting gets started a little bit before that.
Yeah, they'll start on Thursday, and so looking forward to getting this thing going and getting hopefully getting this behind us and get on with the school year. And just wanted to try to provide some information for the public about I know a lot of people like to go to Facebook or Twitter or something like that. X, I'm sorry, I'm dating myself.
I told Twitter.
And that may or may not be accurate. So that's why I want to make sure that we've provided the information to the community.
And I made sure that he went to all the civic groups to be ready for this one right here, for this show right here. So you've given this a few times. So
I have given it a few times. I've got a few more to go. But that's all part of the fun because, back when I was in the classroom, I could provide a lecture on a history class and a topic. Hopefully, the last one is as good as the first one, and they're all really good in between. And,
the history guy, of course, there was a time in Guthrie where passing bonds was a hard time to go through. The last two, I'm sure you'll talk about here in a second, the last two have passed, but you kind of want to forget about the past, but you kind of want to remember too of where we've come from over the last two bonds.
Chris, I think back, I can still remember the school board meeting when I was hired and when you actually interviewed me.
You put the hat on. I
did.
Remember, yeah.
And gosh, that's been well over 12 years ago.
Yeah.
And we've come a long ways. We've got a long ways to go still, but we've not tried to take any shortcuts. We've tried to do this the right way and do it in a way that is prudent financially for the community.
All right. Let's go ahead and take a look at it here, Dr. Simpson. And again, the vote is August 27th. You can begin voting Thursday and Friday. And is it Monday this year or Saturday?
I think it's Saturday.
I think it is.
Sure.
I think it is as well.
I believe it's Saturday too.
Definitely get out and vote Tuesday for sure.
Yes. So one of the things I'm taking everyone through this presentation, and we had a long-range planning committee that met for about 8 evenings, about 13 people. Those folks were not necessarily, they were parents, they're retirees, business people in town that actually didn't even have kids in school. But we try to get a wide range of folks from the community in order to start this, and so we developed some objectives for this to go forward. First, of course, is to enhance technology and safety features across our district, and I'll get into some of the nuts and bolts of that here in a little bit. Prepare for future growth without the use of portable classrooms. I know there's been a lot of discussion about the growth that we've had at Charter Oak that necessitated the portable classrooms, and we'll talk a little bit about that. And I think you can even touch on some of the history of portable classrooms in our district as a student.
Yeah, and I didn't. Second grade, Miss Fryer's class at Cotterell Elementary. Yes, Cotterell was second and third when I went through school. I'm becoming the old guy in the room.
Yeah.
But I was in a portable classroom. I never thought of it. I was in a portable classroom. It was just my classroom. But yeah, I remember very well. I remember like yesterday.
Yeah. So we're, we want to have a situation where we don't use those portable classrooms. And then going back to the other objectives we have, continue to address the maintenance issues with our existing facilities. We want to try and continue to grow more proactive. We have become much more proactive as a district. We want to continue to move more toward a proactive approach to our older buildings and keeping them going. And we want to take a longer look into strategic facility planning for the district. It's important for everyone to understand that this plan we have right here is part of a bigger plan. And I'll get into that. And that's not something that has really been shared a lot with the community because we had to get first bond issue passed, second bond issue passed. Now with the third one, we can start talking about what's beyond this.
Yeah.
and where we're actually headed, because I know there's some concern of, well, what about the room at the secondary sites? And we're going to address that as well in the future, and I'll explain that later on as we talk about this. So, it goes back to, why does our community need this? And we have these great historic buildings, and I used to be a history teacher. I love history. That's one of the reasons I love this community. And those historic buildings are a treasure. Some of them, I didn't put them up here. Some of the historic buildings are even our schools.
Yeah.
But our history also has an impact on why this is important for the district. If you look at our recent bond proposals, you'll see a lot of failed bond proposals there. And those got us behind, quite frankly. They got us where we are behind. There were reasons for them to fail, but there were also reasons for them to have passed and it didn't happen. And so crawling out of this hole and climbing out of this hole has been the biggest challenge that we've got. So our history is something that we keep in mind when we talk about where are we going forward and the importance of these bond issues.
And a lot of people see 50%, 57, 55. It's just another reminder that bonds have to pass by a supermajority of 60% of the vote.
Yes, and I'll get to that on a slide here in just a little bit. Then the other part of this on why this is important is our growth. You can see our enrollment trends, and the 2021 school year, that's 2020, 2021 school year. That was post-COVID, and we had 25% of our students that stayed away for various reasons. They've all come back, and now we're back where we were, but there's also something else going on in town. And so when you look at where we are now, this is at the end of last year, and we're still too early in the school year to know for sure where we stand for this year. So we took the figures from the end of last school year, and you can see at 94% Charter Oak Elementary and Cotterell Elementary at 100% capacity, or actually just a little bit above that. And you look at the district as a whole, 87.7% capacity. So we are full. And so you pair the history of the failed bond issues, the enrollment back where it was, and the capacity where we are right now. Then you throw in this slide with the potential for growth that we have as a district. And you see all of those yellow spots, yellow houses that are they are the location of housing developments that are just inside the city limits of Guthrie. Over 960 homes that are currently platted inside our city limits. And actually that is up by a little bit more than 100, because there's a second phase of, which one is it? It is Hillcrest Farms, maybe? Let's get to this slide right here. Okay, so there's you got Mission Hills, Prairie Point. That's the one that they've started a second phase with over 100 homes in that. And then Guthrie Farms at 388. All of these are inside the city limits. And, I'm kind of joking with my presentations around town. I didn't have to leave town to take this picture.
Yeah.
It was right there in Guthrie Farms. Yep. And you see those houses with the sold signs, and they're in various stages of completion. And those homes are going to, the way those homes are designed, they're going to have young families in them.
Yep.
They are 15 to 2,000 square foot homes, 1,500, 2,000 square foot homes, nice finishes, really good high-end starter homes.
And I drove in there the other day, and not only are they sold, but I see families living there already.
Yeah. We actually had to create a bus stop late in the year last year at Guthrie Farms.
Wow.
So we look at funding options. And when we look at our building fund, because, trying to educate the community of why bond issues are necessary, part of that is we don't have a savings account for building large buildings. when you look at what our building fund yields from our ad valorem collections of property tax, $321,000 of that is routine maintenance. That's just keeping the doors open and having the things that we have to take care of, the wax for the floors, the paper towels, the toilet paper, all of those things. $261,000 are maintenance emergencies. An air conditioner goes out, and we've got to get that fixed in a hurry. Last year, and even this year, we've had trouble with our chiller at Guess, which is a fairly new chiller.
Yeah.
But we dip into that fund to make sure that the buildings are as comfortable as we can get them and get them fixed as quick as possible.
It was a talking point at the last school board meeting.
It was, yes. And so then we have about $190,000 that we reserve for special projects that have not been included in bond issues that we feel are necessary to be done in the district. Then we look at our general fund. And you've got 89% of this is in salaries, 7% is in fixed operating costs. That would be our ever-growing cost of property insurance, our utilities. As people know, none of that has gone down in your home, and it hasn't gone down in the school district either. And then 4% is discretionary budget, but discretionary with air quotes because that includes even textbooks. So very small sliver that is discretionary, and then, do you really consider that a discretionary item?
Need books, probably.
Yeah. We're a school, we kind of need textbooks.
Yeah.
And we've got electronic textbooks, but those aren't free either.
Right.
So we look at bond issues, and as you mentioned earlier, 60% supermajority to pass.
Yeah, most elections are 50%, but sometime legislature put that supermajority word into that.
Constitutional,
yeah.
And so that's 60%, and so there were a lot of those bond issues that failed that would have passed had that been at 50%, but our threshold is 60 for a school bond. And we fund this through property tax. We can bond up to 10% of the value of all taxable property within the school district. And that figure, most recent figure on that is $23.07 million. To give you an idea of how much our property values have grown, that figure was about $13 million when I got to town 12 years ago.
Because at one time we were at zero.
Yes, and that's the millage, but the net assessed valuation has grown by $10 million.
Right.
And so that is what that amounts to is our credit limit. And that's what I try to explain it. If you have a credit card, you've got a credit limit.
Right.
And we can bond up to that credit limit. And so this issue is a $45 million bond. But we will sell the bonds, and we'll have one vote to sell the bonds, but we won't sell all $45 million at once. Right. We'll sell some, pay off some, sell some more, pay it off. And once we work through that $45 million, then we have completed the items that we've put in front of the voters.
Is that what when we look at school board packet, a series of bonds?
Yes. And so that's where we kind of explain that you can vote to approve it in excess of 10%, which that's what the vote is for here. But we can't issue the debt until the debt is below 10%. And that's called a series bond. And so you can see there that the bonds are voted in that exceeds the bonding capacity, but we'll roll them through there. Part of the reason that we were able to start Cotterell a year early is because we have grown, our net assessed valuation has grown so much and paid that off sooner than we were able to get to that money quicker.
Yeah.
And that's just a product of how much we've grown.
And that goes into all the housetops that you were talking about.
Exactly.
Coming in.
So we look at this chart right here, and this is the sinking fund millage rate of school districts around us. This is our neighborhood, and we right now are at 15.82 in the sinking fund. I've heard from during the first bond issue when I was going around providing information to the community, I heard from some people, if you raise my taxes any more than what they already are, I'll have to move. That's when I wanted to put all this together and show everyone that we're lower than everyone else. And in many cases, we are, and the next slide will show you the Oklahoma City metro area. You see where we sit. And our target that the Board of Education has established for the last bond was at 17. And we are at 15.82. The target that the board established for this next bond is to take it from 17 to 20. Now, the rest of this is, because of our growth, we have never reached the target. Right. We have grown, we have outpaced what our conservative estimates were on what the cost of repaying the debt would be, and we've been able to pay that back quicker and keep that millage lower than what we even promised the voters. And so this shows where our millage has been since 2004. And when you look at the orange line is where our current target is and where our previous target was. And then the gray line signifies where the proposed target is of 20. And that line above there that's kind of yellow, that is the average millage for the Oklahoma City area. Now, you'll also see in 2005, 2006 area, Guthrie was actually above 20 mils, and that was a bond issue that funded the stadium. Yeah. Excuse me, and also additions to Fogarty and Central.
Yeah, it's hard to think that Jelsman Stadium, the lights and the new stands and all that is now 18, 19 years old.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Time goes
It
fast.
Sure does.
I'm reminded of that when I look at my kids' pictures. So the question that homeowners ask, will my taxes go up? Easy answer, short answer, yes. Here's the rest of the story. How much? If you have a $100,000 home, and when we say valued, we're talking about assessor's appraised value, not fair market value, because those are vastly different, especially in this economy with the inflation that we've had.
Yep.
The fair market value of homes has risen much faster and much higher than most of the actual assessed values that people are taxed on.
I always say that's the number. If someone was buying my house for that number, I'd be glad to sell right now.
Exactly.
It's not going to happen, but that would be nice.
And so that for a $100,000 home is $3.49 a month. If your home is valued at $150,000, $5.24 per month. And we try to keep those figures as round as possible so people can figure what that really does cost them. Again, not based on fair market value of the house, but based on the assessed value.
And I had a friend message me the other day, how much is my taxes going up? And I had the flyer that was given us when we toured Cotterell, and I just went 524 times 12, $63 a year.
Yeah. We're still less than Crescent, Deer Creek, Edmond, Cashin could be added in there as well. So you think about the people around us, and they're all higher than we already are, even with this increase. And it's still below what we had for the bond issue that renovated Jelsman Stadium in 2005. So what have we done with our schools over the past two bond issues? We've done a lot to improve the educational environment in our oldest buildings. We have to remember that our buildings, many of which are very old, they've been well taken care of, but they needed some TLC. They needed some work, and we still do. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Our junior high is 100 years old, and it's part of a longer range plan on how we can make some improvements to the district. We've leveraged federal money too. We got a lot of COVID money, and we took that money and used it for construction projects, but also for technology and safety initiatives as well to improve the facilities that we have and to make our buildings safer. We're starting to see this enrollment that's going to increase more rapidly. This next bullet point, population inside the city limits, the greatest opportunity for growth in generations. When I came to town 12 years ago, I heard the story that at the land run, Guthrie had 10,000 people.
Yes.
Today, Guthrie has 10,000 people. Well, it's not really true anymore.
Yeah.
We've got, about 11,500, 12,000 people. And just drive down Pine Street and see what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And, our school district has been growing from the outside in. That's unique because most school districts grow from the inside out. And that creates more pressure on our transportation department and things like that. But as we have grown from the outside in, we've done things to address that. Now we've got to turn our concern also to the inside center part of Guthrie because of the building that's going on.
It's a reminder. I believe the school district's 232 square miles. The district is.
That's a bullet point here in just a moment.
Okay, there we go. I promise I haven't seen this yet.
And we've been in the third fastest growing county in the past 10 years. We've been number 3. We have more students that live outside the city limits than live inside. There you go, 232 square miles. Frame of reference for everyone. Deer Creek, Stillwater, 125 square miles.
My favorite thing when people talk about Logan County, Oklahoma County, 232 square miles, Guthrie School District. Oklahoma County has like 200 road miles. Mm-hmm. That's all they have. But most of it's Oklahoma City proper, but Oklahoma County is 200 square miles. So our school district is bigger than actually the county of Oklahoma County.
That's
crazy.
I can't wrap myself around that myself. We have struggled until we began saving money to replenish our transportation fleet, and we saved general fund money to do that. We've not put that on a bond issue because the things that gone on our bond issue are greater needs than what we've got with school buses, and so we've addressed that in another way. A lot of districts have a transportation bond. We've not done that. And then this is something that I kind of go back to. We were able to do more than promised and sooner than in the last bond issue. We leveraged our federal dollars. Had we taken the path of some districts, they added staff. And we added a few contract positions, but the staff that we added, we were going to add anyway. The problem with adding staff, when you have a funding cliff that you have to be aware of, is that staff will end up having to go away. And so you have 3 years of the staff member. This way, we have generations of facilities that have been improved, and that was one of our greatest needs as a district.
And there's already a capacity issue as well with classrooms.
Yeah, and so that's why we took that approach. And then when we talk about completing things faster than we originally thought, I had forgotten about this until I got into preparing for a presentation on this bond. Cotterill was not supposed to even be started until the spring of 25. And we're going to be in that building in the spring of 25. It's a lot of things working together,
right.
But the fact that we're going to get in there sooner is a tremendous asset to our district and to our kids.
I know there's a lot of fourth graders excited to be in that building because they thought they were going to be the first one to miss out, but they're going to get to go in there.
Yeah. So what do we do in these bond issues? In 2015, we built the first new school in our district since '89. So, and I made this point at the Cotterill groundbreaking, but we went almost 40 years without building a school. We've built 2 in 6.
Ain't that amazing?
And we started work on trying to take care of our buildings. We fixed up the restoration of Guthrie Junior High, HVAC and restoration of Central Elementary, new roofs at Fogarty, Central, and Guess, HVAC for the central part of Guthrie High School, which was a complete disaster. That one was the environment that those kids were under. It might work, it might not work, and nobody had a solution that worked. And they'd put baling wire on it to try and make it work.
you know, roofs and windows and tucking and air unit. You don't get to see all that, but the thing with the junior high with the windows was a huge improvement. It made that building stick out even more. It's very nice to drive by.
It's a beautiful building. Still needs some work on the inside. But it's a beautiful building on the outside.
You got to take care of the outside before the inside, right?
Well, and that protects the inside as well. And so then the other things that we did, technology enhancements, including security systems, network upgrades. You know, the thing that I tell about our security systems and our technology, we have the capability now where if the worst case scenario happens and we have an intruder, let's say at the high school, we've got SROs and staff in other buildings that can monitor all of those cameras, and they can be on the radio to the SWAT team or whoever to tell them where the bad guys are. Yeah. And, you know, trying to keep our buildings safe. We want our kids to feel safe before they come to school, and we don't want the bad guys getting to them. And you know, one of my prayers for my career is that I never have to deal with that, because I've had colleagues that have had to deal with that, and I know how difficult it is. And then the other side of this, and we used to joke about this in the first bond issue, and then kind of the second one. You know, I want to remind people, where did we used to get our computers?
Edmond Public Schools.
When they were declared surplus. Yeah. $5 a piece.
Got a good deal on them.
Yeah. So the computers that our kids used were coming from Edmond Public Schools in a surplus sale when they said that they were obsolete for them.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, you walk in a classroom, EPS.
Yeah. It was there.
I remember it well.
We've come a long way, and we did all that under budget and on time. In 2019, we renovated restrooms and auditorium at Fogarty Elementary, restrooms at the high school, constructed secure entrances at 5 school sites. Once we open Cotterell, that one will complete our secure entrances. Every one of our schools will have a secure vestibule for people to enter the building. Yeah. Exterior renovations of the junior high. That's continuing on those windows and things such as that. HVAC systems, junior high and guests. You know, this is the challenge that we faced. In 1996, a bond issue was passed that air conditioned all of the buildings that didn't have air conditioning. Yeah. That was great. But what happens when you do all that work at once? It's all obsolete pretty much at once. And so we've been going through and we've been fixing those and updating them and making them a lot more reliable. And so that's been a big portion of what we've accomplished up to this point.
For the record, I graduated in 1996, and they're old.
This is where Chris says he's not old, I guess. I don't know. So we created a lobby for the high school gym. Now, part of that was funded. We used some bond money, but we also used some of that COVID money for it. And I think that was a game changer for that space. And the thing that I've noticed after we air conditioned that space gets used a whole lot more.
I bet.
The community is in there a whole lot more.
Yep.
And they see that space, and that's more welcoming for visitors in our community as well.
That's it. Visitors to our community, for our students. The other thing that I really take a lot of pride in that is a lot of people outside of town come to athletic events, and what everyone knows about Jelson Stadium, one of the top places in the state of Oklahoma, if not the top. Now that they go into basketball, and that's their what they see of Guthrie Public Schools. A lot of them from Carl Albert don't go to Charter Oak or Cotterell or Fogarty, but they go to the high school, and now that beautiful foyer.
Yeah, and what people don't realize also is that space is used by students for passing in class every day, and that was such a traffic jam. I mean, it was a logistic nightmare to get kids through there and get them to class on time.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
And then technology enhancements improved security, networks. Maintaining that network is it's not free, and so we have to have funds to do that. And then, of course, Cotterell Elementary. We expect to be in there a year early, and it's going to be a gem on the west side of town. And I put that, we got several architects' renderings of what the building's going to look like. I chose that one in particular because I heard some Facebook chatter about what the walls looked like when we stood up the concrete walls and for the gym and things like that. That gym, just like at Charter Oak Elementary, is an F5 tornado shelter as well. Yeah. And so those are concrete walls, but we've got EIFS and brick to cover them to make it a very attractive looking building. So what do we need most? Well, the Long Range Planning Committee toured every building that we have. Yep. They went through and they met with the principal. They met with our director of operations, our director of technology, our child nutrition director, and we explained to them the needs that we have. And then they got together and they prioritized these based on what they saw across the district. So phase one, to begin summer of 2025, if the bond issue passes. Classroom additions. Charter Oak Elementary, currently at 94% capacity. This proposal will add room for an additional 150 students, 6 classrooms. Cotterell Elementary, we're going to add, when we open that building, we're going to increase our capacity by 150 in that building. This will add an additional 100. The whole idea with this is we want to make sure that we are ready because we've got to take some time to pay off the debt that we incurred to build Cotterell before we can bond for a larger package that would include the next phase that I'm going to kind of go over.
And you knew the growth was coming, so now those schools are ready to be added on.
Yes, and that's an important point. Our next slide here, you'll see that building additions are common in many school districts, including ours. Both Charter Oak and Cotterell were designed so that the buildings could be built onto when funds were available. We built that with the funds that we had. And, when we opened Charter Oak, it was at, I think we had about 390 kids in there. Now we're well above that, almost 100 more kids. And, you build onto that. But we built the infrastructure at Charter Oak and at Cotterell. When I say infrastructure, at Charter Oak, the lagoon, all of those things were built so that they could accommodate more kids. And at Cotterell, the cafeterias are all designed to accommodate more kids as well, so that when we build onto this, we're ready with the infrastructure. Then this is something that I was thinking about, because I heard some chatter on social media about we didn't show, we weren't proactive, we didn't plan appropriately. We planned because we knew we would grow so that we could build onto these buildings. Every building in our district, except for Charter Oak, has either been built onto or had portable classrooms. Yeah. And now Charter Oak has a couple of portable classrooms out there. Even Guthrie Junior High, which was originally Guthrie High School. Yep. The original building, built in 1924, just is turning 100 this year.
Oh, wow, yeah.
The addition that is on the west side was added to in 1929. So that's nothing new.
No. In the high school.
Well, that's the next slide.
Okay. I promise I haven't seen this yet.
Okay, so Chris, you grew up here. What school is this? This is a current school.
Just off the parking, all the parking, that has to be the high school.
The new high school.
Yeah, the new high school. That's right.
It's a year older than the superintendent. And then you look at Guthrie High School today, and you can see there have been 4 separate additions to that building when funds became available, as that building yielded for growth of student population. Now let's get into a wrestling practice facility. One of those additions included and was in 1971, and included adding on to the north side. I've got to think at my directions here. The north side of the main gym, and added the space where the bleachers sit and the weight room area, and underneath added some locker rooms and a wrestling practice facility. That was built in 1971. Has really had nothing done to it since. What we want to do is build a standalone building between the gym and the ag building that will be adjacent to, right next to the gym, and increase the workout space by 40%. And so why did we do this? Well, we added girls wrestling in 21-22, but we didn't have locker rooms for them. Currently, our girls wrestlers change in a closet, or they have to go all the way down to the girls' PE locker room off the north gym. Current practice facility, we would convert that into locker room space for boys and girls. And then the facility that we're talking about building is easily expandable. But one thing that we can't do is we can't attach it to the current gym, because then the entire high school building, we would have to bring it up to today's codes with ADA and some things along those lines, and that would increase the ticket price of this entire thing dramatically.
And we've already had a 2-time state champion in girls wrestling,
Yes.
and there's a lot of little girls wrestling right now that might be making their way up to the high school.
Next slide. Wrestling participation.
Yeah.
Are you sure you haven't seen this?
I have not seen us, no, I promise.
Youth wrestling gone from 40 to 110 in the past 4 years. Junior high participation from 18 to 32 in the past 3 years. High school, 22 to 44 in 2019. 2019, we had 1 girls wrestler, and last year we had 7. Total growth from 80 to 186 participants in wrestling. That is remarkable growth. And they just don't have enough space.
Yeah.
It is just a logistical nightmare to try and get those kids where the space that they need to work out. So that's the first phase of this whole thing. Now the next phase is in the fall of 2029. Why do we wait that long? We have to pay off the debt that we've incurred for the Cotterell project and these other projects in a shorter term bond. Then we'll have a longer term bond that will pay off for the next phase of this.
It's a math equation.
Yes, it is, and it's a jigsaw puzzle as well. This land that we have right here, we purchased 5 years ago this 38 acres, and this is it's just west of Brahms and Sonic on near I-35, and this piece of land has frontage along Highway 33, and gives us a lot of opportunity for location of an elementary school. And its proximity to Pine and all of that building is a key element to that. I wish that, I've told others, I wish I could take credit, or somebody could take credit for being such a prognosticator of where a building was going to go. But this is one where we kind of got a little bit lucky. And so we've got the option of building on this site. This site already has, we've got city water and sewer and natural gas. That was a challenge at Charter Oak to get natural gas to that site, because they had not run the gas lines. And so we've got all that infrastructure there already. So we already own the land. We build it for 500 students, but expandable. That's kind of a theme now. We've done the same thing at Charter Oak and done the same thing at Cotterell, and it's expandable. We've got plenty of land for expansion for future recreational facilities too. Some of that land is in floodplain, but it could be ball fields or playground, something along those lines, so we can still use that and possibly have some additional options there. And then, like I said earlier, geographically positioned closest to our greatest student growth opportunities in the community. District-wide maintenance. We want to be proactive on our heating and air conditioning replacement schedule. You can look at those units that you have out there, and you can see it as an absolute hodgepodge, and that's on the south side of the high school along Crooks Drive. And so you don't have to go far to see that kind of look. And some of those units are original to that when that portion of the building was added on, and some of them have been replaced over the years, trying to get out ahead of some of this so that we're not in a situation where the units are down until we can get some in. And if you've ever had to replace a unit at home right now, you know that it's not just, you don't just go to the service company and they automatically have one.
Right.
You may be waiting a while if you don't do it proactively. And then parking lot repairs too. We've got parking lots that have been neglected because we've had bigger things to take care of. You know, the fact that we're talking about fixing up parking lots and things like that, we've come a long ways.
Yeah, we roofs, windows,
Yeah.
and tuck points.
Yeah, we have come a long ways.
Yeah.
But we've still got a long ways to go.
There you go. Was it you that coined the phrase, you can give us $100 million and we're not even getting started
Yeah,
yet?
yeah, and that's pretty much carried itself out, it looks like. Then district-wide safety and technology, $500,000 to maintain our networks, continue to build on them. Total maintenance across the district, $5 million over 5 years. When you know the age of our buildings, you know that sounds like a lot of money, but when you think about many of our buildings are between 75 and 100 years old, that's realistic. So summary of the estimates, and I'm going to start with the elementary school, $32 million. I want to talk a little bit about that. When we built Charter Oak, $11.4 million, I believe, was the price tag.
All these are buildings about the same square. For the most part.
They're same square footage. They may have things located in different spots,
Right.
but pretty much the same finishes and everything. $11.4 million. We had almost $1 million in infrastructure needs because of where that building is located. We had to build a lagoon. We had to build a lift station to get the waste to the lagoon. We had to build a water tower for fire suppression. All of those things added to that almost $1 million. Now, the other side of that is we've probably recouped close to that already in transportation costs.
Yeah.
So we had to do that, and then we went to the voters for Cotterill. And that budget figure, pre-COVID, was $13.4 million. So then we have COVID happen, and anyone that's had to deal with anything at home, you know that inflation has hit.
Yeah.
And it was record inflation. Now it's easing a little bit now, thankfully. But that inflation took the cost of Cotterill to $17.1 million to build what we said we were going to build. If we hadn't rolled all of those federal dollars into the projects that we promised the voters, we wouldn't be able to build Cotterill today.
You have to go ask for.
We would have to ask for more money
Yeah.
from the voters. But we did that, and this allowed us to make good on our promise of what we said we were going to do at Cotterill and all of the things that we said we were going to do around the district. And so that $32 million is the estimate from the architect of what it would cost in 2029 for the same building. So that is inflation at its, that's a graphic explanation of inflation right there. Elementary classroom additions, we're talking about doing that right out of the box to build onto these buildings so that we can redistrict our elementary kids and ease the overcrowding across the district. District-wide maintenance, we talked about that, $5 million. Wrestling practice facility, just below $1.4 million, and $500,000 for safety and technology. That totals $45 million. And so let's think about this. Promises kept.
Sorry.
In 2015, we made a promise to the voters, and we delivered on that promise. And it hasn't always been easy. It hasn't always been a smooth ride, but we delivered on that promise. Then, more promises kept in 2019. There were school districts that promised to their voters things that they couldn't deliver because they also chose to put the federal dollars into personnel and things like that. We chose to make sure that we kept our promise with our community. We used our federal funds to take on the project list and supplement the needs so that we could outpace inflation with our funds. Again, accountability that we've shown. So this is where I want to talk a little bit about, this is more than a Band-Aid. This is a long-term. We started this with bond issue number 1 and continued it with bond issue number 2. But now let's talk about what's next beyond this bond issue even. If we can create enough space in our elementary schools to get 5th grade into those buildings, then we build on to GUESS, upper elementary. We build a science wing and a competition gym. GUESS would then become a building that serves 7th, 8th, and 9th graders. So everybody's wondering about how are we creating space for our secondary students, because we're creating all this elementary space. By shifting the 5th graders into the elementary, like most districts actually do,
Yep.
we then have the 7th, 8th, and 9th at GUESS. We've taken a grade out of the high school to allow for growth. We've built onto GUESS. We've then taken all of the activities that we bus kids from the junior high now to the high school for, such as ag, track, a lot of these other things, they're already there.
Yeah.
And then the question is, well, okay, if everybody's thinking about this, what have you done with the 6th graders? 6th graders stay in the junior high. So we go from 2 grades in there to 1, and then begin interior renovation of that building while school's going on. So we renovate half the building, flip it, renovate the other half. Then we've got a building that originally could hold 2 grades that has 1 grade in it, so it's got room to grow as well.
What's that do to the junior high if you got 7th and 8th grade?
6th grade is in the junior high.
6th
current
grade,
junior
okay,
high.
okay, that's why.
Okay.
Making
Yeah,
sure.
I just threw a whole lot at you.
Yeah, okay, I was making sure. So,
And at everyone else.
so ideally, 6th grade would be at junior high. 7th, 8th, and 9th would be at the new the current Guthrie Upper Elementary with the science wing and competition gym.
Yeah.
And that affects everybody. The students at Cotterill, Fogarty, Central, Charter Oak, they're all going to go to the junior high at some point. So that affects the entire district.
Yeah. So the kids leave the neighborhood school after 5th grade instead of after 4th grade and go to the current junior high as 6th graders.
And I've just learned not recently, over the years that around the state that junior high is mostly 7th, 8th, and 9th, and they call it middle school. That's something not we call it junior high, but it's middle school.
And people are all over the map on that. Yeah. But whatever we call it, what that does is that has then created space in the secondary buildings to accommodate growth.
I like it.
Yeah, but I just threw a whole lot at everyone.
Yeah. That's looking forward, though.
Yes, but we can't get there
Without this.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is more than a Band-Aid.
Yeah.
It is a long-term part of a proactive plan. And one of the things that I talk about is we want to create an environment where our kids want to continue to live here after they graduate. And we have to do that with cooperation. I talk and share with colleagues around the state about the cooperation that we have in Guthrie.
Yeah.
And it hadn't always been there, and it hadn't always been smooth and everything, but we have some amazing partnerships. We have people that work together and people that are not afraid to say they put their kids first in this community.
Yeah.
whether it's their kids or their grandkids or they don't have kids, it's still their kids.
Yeah, and your picture there. I mean, you talk about City of Guthrie. They helped tremendously with security, with school resource officers. Guthrie Chamber of Commerce with all their back to school events and pizzas and drinks for all the teachers and all the chamber. And then Ministerial Alliance are there for everything that you would ever ask for.
Yeah, I mean, anytime I need anything from any of those groups, I just call them, and they're going, we want to know how we can help.
Yeah,
and they learned early on in my time here that you better not say that because you're gonna get asked.
Yeah, it was a great back to school bash
that was fun.
at Community Church.
Yeah,
over 100 backpacks of supplies went out, and so it was a great turnout and free haircuts. I mean, businesses come together.
How cool was that?
Yeah, it was cool.
I mean, to watch those kids, and I think, I saw some that were even younger than school age. I think there were a couple of them might have been their first haircut.
Yeah,
and that was so fun to watch.
Cool.
Yeah. So, this slide, 12 years ago, when I moved to town, I heard Guthrie proper and South County and all of this stuff. My gosh, we've come a long way because I don't hear that anymore.
Yeah, no.
I hear Guthrie kids, and we've really come a long way. But I also go back to Chris, and we've talked about some of this off the air through the years. What would have happened? And what would it look like if we hadn't passed that bond issue for Charter Oak?
Yeah.
And so, one of the board members, school board members, said when I laid all this out, and I laid it out to him like a fire hose, like I laid it out here on this podcast, and she said, "Well, that's pretty ambitious." And I said, "So is it more ambitious than building a school 13 miles from the administration building in town?
In the middle of nowhere.
Is it more ambitious than changing the elementary schools from grade centers to neighborhood schools?
A lot of people didn't like that at the beginning.
Is it more ambitious than the largest bond issue in the history of the district?" And she looked up and said, "No."
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's something we got to remember where we've been and where we came from.
Going to neighborhood schools, so many people take those PTOs. I see moms and dad my age taking pride because they're going to be there for 3, 4, 5 years, and how much pride they take in their school.
Well, and I look at it as a parent too. When my kids were at Central, when our daughter was at Central, she would get the fundraiser all over with, and by the time they got the goods, she's leaving Central and moving on to Fogarty.
Yeah.
And that ownership is a real thing.
Mm-hmm. It is.
Yeah. So this is something that I've really kind of gotten jumped on board with. There's no doubt we're in the midst of a transformation in this community. We've talked about momentum through the years, but this is a transformation. And I go back to something that I always say, and I share this with our staff. The challenge is always is to leave it better than you found it. Look, Guthrie's going to be handing out diplomas long after I'm gone as superintendent. And every job is temporary.
Yep.
But if you'll go back to the slide, how you leave it speaks to the legacy. And that's what I think is most important here, is how you leave it speaks to the legacy. And so, on August 27th will be the vote. We talked about early voting. We've outlined a whole lot of things. There's a whole lot of things that weren't on a slide, but we've talked about. So, we're looking forward to this and looking forward to the challenge.
As you've gone around to all these different groups, still got some work to do.
Yeah.
But what's been some of the questions that most come up?
I've more than anything, everybody wants to know how much it's going to cost the voters.
Yeah.
And then they also want to know, they're interested in the plan beyond this plan. What's next?
Yeah.
And that's why laying that out is a key part of this package so that everybody understands where we could be headed. And I think that's a big piece to this whole thing, is to reassure everyone that this is not the last bond issue.
Right. This
is the next bond issue. And there are people that would like to say that, well, this should be the end of it. But when all you have to do is drive them down Pine,
yeah,
and you see why all of those other districts that have a higher millage, they grew so fast that they couldn't keep up, and their millage had to go up. And so that's where we're trying to be ahead of that and keep it at a reasonable level while still continuing to pass these bond issues and delivering on what we said we were going to do.
Yeah, and you've been the center of all that, and I give you a lot of credit, but a lot of credit to that committee who put in those long nights when people weren't looking, and obviously the school board as well. But Cody Thompson, I can't. That guy, I mean, he has his fingerprint on the entire district. I mean, he's in those classrooms and buildings, and knows the insides of parts that I have never seen that he knows about, like the back of his hand now.
Well, and while we've been sitting here taping this, I've gotten several text messages. I'll guarantee at least one of them is from him giving me an update on a heat and air issue or something like that. And he keeps our principals informed.
Yeah.
And I've learned over the years, the one way to solve a drought is to do roof work.
Yeah.
And one way to make sure that you have heat is to make sure that one of the air conditioners is not working.
Yeah.
You're going to have oppressive heat. And he handles that. He was out at Cotterell one night. We had a gas line out. He was out there in 0-degree weather trying to get that gas line fixed. And his outstanding staff.
Absolutely. Good school year so far?
Great school year so far. The things that are the normal bugaboos were the normal bugaboos.
Sure.
We've worked through them. Things transportation-wise was very smooth today, and so knock on wood, we'll get everybody home safely and get ready for tomorrow.
Well, I want to thank you for stopping by and talking to us and really outline everything. And it's very similar to your 15 bond, 19 bond. You're on a streak, so you're keeping everything the same. But that's what's good about you. Every time you click there, it always said #accountability, and that's just showing what you did, keeping your word through this process.
I think that's the most important thing that I want. I want our community to trust our schools. I want them to know that we are an open book, and we're not perfect. Never said we were, but we want, and so far that has served us well and served our community well, because the partnerships that we developed, if the people in our community don't trust us, they're not going to jump into these partnerships.
Yeah. Reminder, Election Day is August 27th. You begin early voting, if you want, at the Logan County Election Board, right across from the Logan County Courthouse, beginning on Thursday. So get out there and make your vote count, and they all do count. Don't let anybody tell you any different. Dr. Simpson, appreciate you stopping by and sharing some information with us.
Chris, thanks for the opportunity. As always, appreciate all you do for the Blue Jays.
Thank you. Dr. Mike Simpson, we'll talk to you next time here on the Chris Evans Podcast.